shadows on my face. Step into the light, into the light. The truth of day brightens my path. Within the light, within the
If the Duratic Seal and activation of Stargate 6 was initiated and just left at that, it would kill most people on the planet. It would create total deterioration over a few years of the immune system and all the body systems, because the body could not hold that amount of frequency that rapidly. Now, if the Guardians are going to intervene and try to get the place back, they're not going to do it and then let everybody get wiped out anyway. They wouldn't do it unless there was something that could be done about that. And this is where the twinning event comes in. We'll talk more about the details of the twinning, because it's kind of complicated, tomorrow. The twinning comes down to a very personal reality that some people know about and most people don't. That when we incarnate from the higher levels, from density 2, when we come down into density 1, we come in something called a 12 clock, or a cycle of 12 simultaneous incarnations placed in various different time vectors within the same Earth cycle, different time periods, but in the same cycle. We come in with something called a twin, a gender twin, which is ourself, but in the opposite gender of what we are here. Now, most people, unless you happen to be indigos, I'll tell you about most people first. Most people come in with their gender twin, but they don't run in one given lifetime. They will not run into their gender twin in every lifetime. Only in the last lifetime before ascension. They will meet their gender twin, and they're like those, sometimes there's those like love at first sight, just, fall in love. You see, once in a while, you see these couples that have this really special weird thing. They're just really together. And even when they can fight and be mad at each other, but there's still this love bond between them. You can feel it. This is indicative of gender twin, natural gender twin relationships. Gender twin relationships are very special. Now, some people's gender twins pass on before they do, and they'd be like in D4 in between lifetimes and not on planet. There's a lot of variations on this. But when we come in as regular human beings with 12-strand patterns, we have our gender twin that we would naturally meet at the end of our cycle of 12, where we'd come together and then we would merge. And usually they end up as romantic couples, because when you combined, there's a lot of people don't realize, sexuality is about combining Kundalini coding and DNA coding. When you unite with someone, you are taking on part of their codes, and they're taking on part of your codes as far as the template scalar wave patterns. With gender twins, the progressive coming together as, well, it was originally the divine coupling. The married couple really kind of symbolized that. They were stimulating rapid activation of each other's gene codes. So they would progressively and synchronistically be able to work their way into ascension together. And they would ascend together and end up in density 2 cycles, or higher if they had higher coding. That was a natural way it was supposed to work. With indigos, it's even more fun. I'm going to part of this, but not all of it, because it gets really wild. But with indigos, in every vector, they come in with a gender twin. There's a gender twin for every indigo in its own time vector. So they're gender twin pairs, right? Not only do they have the one there in that time vector, they have another set in the inner Earth time vector at the same time, and another set on the parallel Earth time vector. There's that extra inner Earth set of manifestations that goes with the indigo imprint. That's the Iani Council that regular 12-strand DNA humans don't have to deal with. The twinning event goes back to the Nibiruing dyadic crystal grid. This is one of the nastiest things that was done to this race. Actually, they told me, to me, it was one of the nastiest I've heard of. That means there's a lot more, because they said this was one of the minor things they did to us. Because the incarnational cycles on this planet are, as far as incarnating on the planet, there's a whole set of mathematical relationships that takes place to do that. We come in with our twins, and if the Earth cycles are working normally, we meet our twins at the end of our 12 cycle and then ascend for regular humans. What they did with the dyadic crystal grid was throw codes in that mismatched and scrambled the timelines just enough where gender twins could not come together. That kept everybody trapped down here. Because if you don't merge with the coding of your gender twin, either here or on the astral, you don't get the final activation where you both become one again to get up to the next level. That's one of the ways they entrapped human souls here, is scrambling the timelines and Earth's grids. So the natural gender twin cycles would not come together. And what they did instead was they tried to pair up humans with Anunnaki to continually hybridize, progressively trying to hybridize us out of our 12-strand potential. With the Eoni Council, it had the same effect. But the thing with the Eoni Council is, being an indigo child has some special features. Not only do you not just have 12 strands, you have anywhere from 24 to 48 strands. Now with the human imprint, the simple 12-strand imprint, the DNA templates of the gender twins polarize from D12, well, from this low subharmonics of D12 down, which gives a real separation of individuality feeling between the gender twins with just human form. With the indigo imprint, the Eoni Council imprint, there's polarization in the strands only from D6 down. There's full bonding and total mirroring of the templates of the DNA from strands 7 and up. It creates a not quite full separation from each other that allows them to anchor the Kundalini and the Kirashe and other things that if you're totally separated into polarity, you can't. It also creates, when you separate gender twins, a very, very deep pain inside, a biologically felt ache that doesn't go away. If the other is not where it's supposed to be, it can be felt. We've been living under that since 22,500 BC. What is happening now is very special. They're running the frequencies through the grids, and it begins tonight for those who will come, and it ends on January 1st. That will begin to reprogram some of the scrambled timelines. Just enough, and we can do this now, and we'll phase lock it in Kauai. It's going to start putting those natural time cycles back together, de-scrambling the scrambled timelines, which are going to allow the gender twins to come back into each other's vector. But more than that, it's going to accelerate the process. So even humans that are not in an indigo body, that normally wouldn't, because it's not necessarily their last incarnation here, they wouldn't meet them, they're going to accelerate the lines where they will. If their gender twins aren't here and are in the, have crossed over, they will arrange astral interaction with them. If they don't want to have a relationship with their gender twin who is out here, they will still arrange astral field bonding between them. If people are open to the gender twin thing, first of all, you may actually be with yours. There are some people, particularly indigos, who manage to come through and get through and move through the scramble in the timelines where they actually found their gender twin. So if you're part of a married couple and it's a good thing happening, there's a good chance you may have already found yours as an Eoni Council. That will amplify and get stronger. And whatever bond you have, they told me it'll go this way. There'll be a little clearing of conflict stuff from old patterns, and then there will be an even stronger bond than was ever there before. if you have your twin with you. If you don't, you're one of those rocky relationships that you just know, it's all right for now, but I really have a feeling I'm not supposed to be here forever. It may be the fact that you're still paired with an Anunnaki or a Draconian that you don't belong with. They don't belong with you any more than you belong with them. They can't ascend either that way. Okay? The grids are going to do this on a mass level. They're going to reorder the timelines to start bringing the gender twins back together, both in the Eoni councils and in the general human populations. It's going to cause some chaos, I imagine, in marriages and things that aren't real good. If you're not really with the person you're supposed to be with, you're going to find out fast, probably, because it'll kick up all of this stuff that is disharmonic between you. But if you have, now gender twins, this is where the harmonic versus not harmonic comes into. Gender twins share the same DNA template, one spliced into the magnetic, base magnetic, where it's more drawing frequency, which would be female, and the other being its replicate in the base electrical, which would be the male body form. So it's literally, there are men and women on this planet whose DNA templates, the codings and the templates beneath the manifest strands, and which is reflected in the manifest strands, actually have total compatibility. Others have some compatibility. Some have no compatibility. This is where it's kind of funny. You watch science trying to figure out, where does human attraction drive come from? Maybe it's pheromones, Well, pheromones may have a part in the process, but it doesn't start there. Attraction to each other has always been about the DNA template. Our intimate relationships have always been about ascension. And that truth was denied us because of the manipulation that's been here since 22,500 BC and before, some of it. There are some people who will have connection with their gender twin on the astral levels. There are some who will meet them physically and some who are already with them. The reason it's being done is because when you bring gender twins together and begin the fusion of their DNA strand templates, they can hold in each of their bodies 3 times as much energy as either could hold alone. So if they're going to amplify the grid speed to the point where it would basically biologically kill everybody because their bodies can't hold enough frequency, you pair them up with a buddy that has a matching DNA template, and you can hold 3 times the amount of frequency, which A, creates immunity to the grid acceleration, and B, makes you a very powerful resource, if you so choose to serve that way, to anchor higher dimensional Merkaba vehicles. If you're a small gender twin coupling where it was just the person from this cycle that you were intended to meet, you'll be able to anchor what's called a holophase Merkaba, which is a 6-dimensional Merkaba. A Merkaba is basically an electromagnetic field in the shape of a star tetrahedron that at its core has something called a form constant space. It's a space, a spherical space that forms inside of these electromagnetic currents, spiraling, counter-rotating electromagnetic currents in the form of a star tetrahedron, that creates reality fields. When you create your Merkaba vehicle, you're literally activating things in the body that create this spherical form constant light bubble around you in your auric field that allows you to pass through stargates without frying. Now, when you bring gender twin couples together, they have the ability to rapidly activate their own Merkaba, accelerating their own DNA strand template activation and such. But they have the ability to start bringing in the frequencies depending on what their particular coding. Indigos, you put gender twin indigos together, they can anchor the Kundalini. Parts of it anyway, depending on if you have 48 codes, you can anchor the whole darn thing times 3. Not just times 1. So people who come together, particularly the Eoni Council, who have that ability to anchor alone, they can anchor the Kundalini. You put them together with their gender twin, they can anchor 3 times the amount of Kundalini frequency. Kundalini frequency coming into the planetary grids will allow something besides not getting fried on a biological level, as far as your twin, being with your gender twin will help this. You may find them popping up in your life. It starts in January 1st it starts, and it's going to move rapidly, I think. because the time is so short, but to the end of the year that we need to get some of this stuff accomplished. But gender twins who are aware that that's what's happening are going to be asked if they're willing to create something called safe zones. Where, and it's funny, you don't have to be an intimate couple. You may find your gender twin, and you may be in a relationship that you really value. That will be respected, though you may find yourself compelled to really needing to find a way to work it out. Because there's a real strong biological draw, usually, between gender twins. It's just, really there. Which they're trying to repress right now with those crystal grids that we're going to reprogram. And what we'll do is, because of your biofields, because the extra transmissions, if you want to come tonight and get those to activate, begin activation of the Kundalini in the body, you will be able to, first of all, it'll accelerate your gender twin thing happening. It'll accelerate the process of those vectors coming together where you trip over each other. Secondly, you'll be able to begin creating safe zones on the planet. This is also needed if we're going to activate Stargate 6 to reclaim Stargates 4 and 5 and get them back under burnout protection. The planet needs to be able to handle that frequency, not just the human gene code. If we can build Merkaba sites, which are, we run the Maharic seal, and there's going to be a certain technique that they give us to do this that will be in writing before you leave. It creates a safe zone site where it creates a space. It'll create a Hala phase Merkaba, which is a six-dimensional Merkaba. That's a plug for six-dimensional frequency from the Stargates to come in and synthesize through so it doesn't hit the grids and just start creating chaos. We need to help create Merkaba safe zones. There are also zones that, within them, they create a form constant within their area. And they'll be getting a lot more information on this as we go along, but this is the basic concept of what they're wanting us to do if we're willing to help. Wherever we are, we can learn to run the technique just to anchor and say, okay, yeah, I'll anchor one here, anywhere you want. Every step I take, let me anchor one, go ahead. You can have fun with this. It helps your system, because every time you assist in anchoring a Merkaba, it assists in accelerating a bit of your own DNA template and your own spiritual integration process. Okay, you had a question, yes?
Yeah. You spoke about the Council of 9.
Yeah.
Who are the Council of 12? And also, when we get these transmissions tonight, can we also pass that transmission on to, like my mate who's also part of this group, but she's just not here today?
You can, they're telling me that you can ask them to help you do that. Okay. But until you do certain levels of Kundalini activation, to bring it in all by yourself is going to be difficult. That's why they're helping with the transmissions right now. I do that sometimes in a room where I know how to activate my Maharic shield, and I can feel it underneath my feet, and I can feel the energy pumping. Yeah. And I just teach somebody, like a group, Maharic shield, and I can watch with, I look with the inner vision and watch their Maharic shields, and some of them kind of go, ugh, and they try to pop up, and others just can't activate. So I kind of just send a nice run of frequency under the room just to stimulate them to come up. They will do the same type of thing to help us with the Kundalini and the Kirashe energies. Right. But yes, you can pass it on with your mate. In fact, one of the strongest ways to pass on activations is in the combining, when mates combined, because your field's open to each other. Right. Okay? This has been a tactic that's been being used to mess up the DNA code of a lot of the Iani Council that aren't awakened yet. They're trying to pair them with Draconians, or they're trying to pair them with Anunnaki. And the sad thing is, the people that have the Draconian and Anunnaki codes don't know it. Their matrices don't tell them that. They just think they're regular humans like anybody else. But they happen to be used, they guide them into relationships, just when indigos are trying to awaken, usually. And they try to hijack them. And if they get them involved sexually and get those fields open, they start to contaminate the indigo's DNA template. All right, so this has been going on all through the New Age movement, but it's been going on all through human history since at least 22,500 BC, actually, but it's been upstepped lately. So yes, you can use that principle in reverse for good things. Right. You can bring the frequencies, Maharic frequencies, into your field and pass them on to your mates or to your lovers. You can even pass them on to a smaller degree in a hug to someone. But you always ask first. If you can't ask them directly because you have to explain a billion things they're not going to understand, put out a call to their own avatar level and say, is it okay if I do this? Because you don't put anything in anybody's field without asking permission. And if they can't answer you here because they don't have the knowledge base to where your words are going to make sense, you do have the right to, from your avatar level, bring in that silver level of yourself, that pale silver avatar self, and ask your avatar level to ask their avatar level if it is all right that you bring this frequency to them. And you'll get a feeling. I mean, if you have direct, open communication, you'll get a yes or no, or maybe, or not today, maybe next week. But if it's a no at that moment, you'll get a feeling, not right to do right now. There's something that doesn't feel right, that I get a feeling that I'm not supposed to. But usually, the answer will be yes, unless they're not ready to hold whatever frequency. Okay? So you can use the regular twinning effect to help. Think about the twinning for a while, though, and how neat. Because I don't want everybody to leave here on, oh my God, it's that bad. You know, yuck. You know, we have all this work to do, and how dare they do that? They're not very nice. That's not a good vibe to send people away on, and I don't want to do that. There's one aspect of this that is very, very joyful, and that has to do with the twinning. Be it your twin, your gender twin, or the closest match they can possibly find. Once in a while you'll have a gender twin that's off someplace else, like literally in another universe, that is not going to be able to bring it through, but that's not too many, but some are like that. You will still be assigned with a buddy, either in the astral, if that's where you want it, or in the physical. They'll bring someone into your life that you have the closest DNA template match to. What that means is, you know how men and women tend to just have this thing sometimes, or they have a real hard time understanding each other, this like gender barrier thing? That is very, very much less, particularly in indigo children, gender twinnings, or even close matches. So that's something to look forward to. There is one more thing, I'm glad I came back to this, that I didn't say, that I need to say. When we're talking about the astral, we're talking about the astral plane, or the D4 level, where you can take your astral body, and there's a lot of people, it's getting really popular in the New Age movement to have all these wonderful astral affairs with beings from all over the place. I met a lady who likes to sleep with Dracos because they're really good in bed. That's what she talks about. Astral relationships with draconian hybrids, great. There's others that are really, really very enamored by the pretty, pretty Palladian Nibiruans, who look so angelic, and they're usually gorgeous. Well, at least that's how they present themselves. Once upon a time, astral affairs were fine. When you're in a time like this, they're the most dangerous thing you can do. When you're sent, if you're not going to have, if you end up for some reason that your gender twin is not in a physical body, or you just aren't open to having that quite in the physical, where you'd be more comfortable with an astral relationship, there's one thing that will not, absolutely not, be occurring in the astral relationships. They will not turn into what feel like and look like sexual affairs there. They may end up here as sexual bonding and committed relationships and things, but because right now the tactic of sending in wonderful astral lovers to seduce humans is being used by both Draconian and Anunnaki forces for one reason. You take your astral body out, you go and have an affair. It's the same darn thing as linking your fields sexually here with someone here. They're doing code saturation of the DNA template, and people are falling for it. There's articles popping up even in like the Inquirer and the Sun papers now about beautiful aliens coming and having romantic affairs with humans, and taking them out of body and all this. This is even hitting like the Sun now. When you look at the Sun type tabloids, these are the ones that tell you little info bites on what's really going on, but it's all presented as fiction, of course. No, everybody knows you don't believe those stories, right? Be aware that even though the tactic used to be used in the Ancient of Days, when it was safe to use it, where when your gender twin would meet you on the astral, you could have intimacy there that could even hit levels that the physical body couldn't even attain. That will not be used by guardians from this point forth, because there's other ways to bond the fields that do not engage the full, what appears to be sexual interaction on D4. There are ways to naturally bond the fields, and your gender twin and you will be able to do that, where somebody infiltrating your field would have to do different types of infiltration to try to get in, because they don't have the DNA compatibility. But if they can get you to willingly open your fields by having astral sexual encounter, Easy, got one. It's being used all the time. So I just want you to know that I've said there may be gender twins approaching you in the astral level, or guides or something approaching you telling you about gender twins. If any of them that appear to you or come to you in the astral try to get you into a sexual astral liaison, reject it immediately. If it's your gender twin, it won't do it that way, and it won't go into that, just so you won't be tricked. Okay? It's important.
Is the twin flame the same kind of words that are used?
Yeah, twin flame, but that's also an abused word. It's used and abused in the New Age movement. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. In tomorrow's workshop, we're dealing with the angelic human lineage, which gets into the personal level of stuff. It gets into how you incarnate here, your incarnational 12 cycles, your simultaneous 1,728 different simultaneous selves that are running around in the time matrix. It gets into all of that. So we'll understand more of those things when we get into that level. Okay, so I just wanted to leave you with that. Be careful of astral seduction and enjoy the fact that for the first time, we're going to be brought into the ability to have relationship with people who have very, very similar DNA templates to ours, where the level of love, bonding, understanding, support, friendship, all those things that can be so terribly missing sometimes in relationships. On a mass level, this is going to start to happen. It's going to do wonderful things for the vibration of love, and it's going to build lots of Merkabas as well. Okay, so it may do quite a few of those, too.
That's the second part of my question.
By the way, gender twin couples make very powerful little avatar babies usually. Yeah, some form or another. It helps to understand your relationships here, first of all. It helps to understand something that's happening that we talked about yesterday called the twinning. Now, there is something called soul twins. There's also something called oversoul twins and incarnate twins. When we come down, if you can picture, visualize in your mind, a round clock with 12 digits on it, they would represent, if you were a soul, they would represent the 12 incarnate selves that you were going to put down at the same time in the time vectors in density 1 on Earth. The first ones to come in are the 6 and 12 position. They carry the most energy. Out of the 12 comes the 3 position. And at the same time, out of the 6 comes the 9 position. They're known as the 4 faces of the soul. They carry most of the energy of that soul. Then there are the smaller ones that would fill in the numbers between the 12, 6, 3, and 9. And they, if you would draw a line across, you would find, if you take a clock and draw the lines across, they each have a number directly across from them. When you incarnate, you come in, most of the time, half and half. The first time you come in as a soul, and you come into incarnation, the first 2 incarnations placed in time vectors are the 6 and 12 positions. They're the ones that basically direct the rest of the matrix, the rest of your incarnations. And they're the ones you come back around to. You come back into being them to become one, to go back up, to leave density 1, where you don't have to do the cycles of incarnation over and over here again. A soul twin is something different than an incarnate twin. A twin would be, if you are the number 6 incarnate in that group of 12, your twin would be the 12. They are called, they are the primary twins. They are called twin flames. That's 6-12 alignment. If you happen to be in your number 4 incarnation now, you would still have a soulmate, but that's different than a twin. It's your twin, but you're not in the 4 primary incarnations yet. You still have some cycles to go to before you get to those. Okay, there's a significance in the number incarnation that you are, and you can find this. You can ask your own higher self to tell you, out of 12, what number is my incarnation? Am I a 6? Am I a 12? One will be male and one will be female. Sometimes certain matrices will do certain changes with that for very specific purposes, but the base pattern of a human imprint is 6 and 12. That one comes in, becomes a 6 and 12 position. One is male, one is female. The 12 is usually male. If that is male, the 3 it creates as female. If the 6 is female, the 9 it creates as male. These become the next set of twins, the 3 and 9. They are placed in different time vectors within the same time cycle. At different times, when it's time for you to go to experience what's called ascension to the next level, which would be density 2. You're going to pass from the physical matter density as you're done with your study down here. You're going to go up into the next level. And this is your way back, working your way back into expanding into source. Density 2 would require you taking all of your cells there, your 12 pattern, pulling it all up back into 1, where it would be 1 there, but then it would open up and become a set of twins there too. All right? So what I'm trying to explain is that we have a part of ourselves in an opposite gender body. That's a gender twin. It's a twin flame. If it happens to be a 6-12 or a 3-9 alignment, they're considered twin flames. If it's some of the others, it's considered a soulmate, which will be if you run into that person in your time vector, they will be a partner to be with, but it will be a relationship that will move on to the next. It won't be one that lasts, that's like not one of those eternal, forever, married couple kind of thing forever. There's a whole relationship between the way time cycles work on a planet and the time vectors the twins are placed in when they come together. Sometimes you won't meet your twin in a particular lifetime. When it comes to the real twins that aren't just soulmates, they run into each other only at the final end. The 6-12 twins, first you'll have like an incarnation where the 3-9 twin happens. You actually run into your opposite gender twin in the same time vector. And you usually know something's up because it's usually a very strong resonance. What happens with the twins is that 12 pattern that you came in on sets the DNA template. The characteristics that you have will be reflected in the twins. You both have the same DNA template, one in the male and one in the female, which means one is more magnetic and one is more electrical, but they're expressions of the same pattern. So there's a very strong biological resonance between twins. When it comes to the natural cycles of ascension, what normally happens is the time vectors of the planet move in a certain way that twins are brought together when it's the last time, the last incarnation. They're not going to experience any more cycles. They've hit the original vibration that they came in on. And then they come back together. And that's where you have your kind of like, feels like your eternal forever companion, mate person. You just have this charge between you. And it usually works in this time cycle that the male tends to cross first, and then the female catches up with it, and they ascend together when they go up to the next level. It doesn't always go that way, but sometimes it does. Sometimes they go together, which is great. Twins are important because it has to do with the DNA template, which has to do with how energy works in the body. When you put two twins together, when they come together in union, they're able to hold a huge energy field together because it's like having twice the same DNA template. They can bring in twice the amount of frequency. They help each other evolve and expand and bring in the higher consciousness. The reason understanding twins is becoming important is because they're creating an event called the mass twinning event. The guardian races and the Brenau races and the ascended master levels are initiating this on Earth for a very specific reason. We talked about that yesterday, the people who were here. We talked about the fact that the grid speed of this planet, the planetary Templar grid speed, is going to be increased very, very rapidly. It needs to be increased rapidly, or there's going to be a major problem. Because if we don't increase the grid speed rapidly, we're going to not be able to secure stargates that I talked about before, stargates 4 and 5. They're going to be used to try to block the stellar activation cycle that we're in, whether or not we want to be. And if they are blocked, if those gates are blocked, this place will go into pole shift. That's why this intervention has taken place. We talked about how we can make differences in that, and that's why we have these kind of workshops where we're talking about very heavy-duty things. The twinning means we're all getting a buddy, and if at all possible, it's going to be the twin we would normally meet at the end of our incarnational cycle here. If we happen to have avatar contracts where we were supposed to not only activate 3 strands in this cycle, but go into 6 and then 6, 9, and 12 and do our whole avatar thing, that means we're going to have an interesting life experience because we'll go through first combining and meeting our 6-12 twin for density 1. And then that will run its cycle, and then it will seem to drift apart. And then in the same body, we'll end up finding our density 2 twin. And you'll have another relationship. This is how it would normally work if you're accelerating, but there's a little trick they're adding to this. Then after that, you'd find another one. You'd find your density 3 twin. And each twinning, you would find a deeper level of love and a stronger level of bonding. And each level, for each person, it would begin to open up their consciousness more and more because it's helping to activate the DNA template for both as they go. What is being done on the planet, being issued by the guardian legions, that we don't have a choice about because, well, if we wanted to have a choice, it would be pretty silly to say, well, no, don't raise the frequency of the grid speed. We'd rather them keep the stargates and let the place go into pole shift. Thank you. Most humans wouldn't feel that way if they understood the choice that was on the table. So the guardian legions have taken it upon themselves to intervene on our behalf until we can begin to intervene on our own behalf and understand what's going on. Because they're going to raise the grid speed. Now, this is what's going on. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about the fact that there's one way to resecure Stargates 4 and 5 and get them clear so they don't create pole shift here. And that's to activate prematurely Stargate 6, which has higher frequency than Stargate 5 or 4. And if you run Stargate 6 frequency down through 5 and 4, it will blow any disharmonics out of it, which will realign those. But it will also bring in 6-dimensional frequency into the planetary grids about 5 years faster than it's supposed to be here, which will affect the human DNA template. If this was done without doing anything to assist humans, it would kill humans to have 6-dimensional frequency here on planet this year, and that's when it's coming. So what's being done is the Guardian Legions, through your own avatar templates, through your Christos template, through your oversoul and your soul, all your parts on higher levels agreed to this because they'd like you to survive. They want us all to get through this. They're going to, through the planetary grids, descramble the timelines that have been scrambled, which are vibrational patterns that run through the control when twins run into each other. And they're going to have us come into the same union with, if at all possible, the twin that would be our highest twin that's available. If we can be united with our Maharic twin, which is our avatar twin, that will be done. They can hold huge amounts of frequency together. They can anchor very large Merkaba vehicles called, they each can anchor what's called a Mahanta Merkaba vehicle, which is a 12-dimensional Merkaba vehicle. You put 2 of those together, you have a 24-frequency Merkaba vehicle. You put 3 of those together, and that's the reason for the 3, and you get 36-frequency Merkaba vehicle, which is a huge amount of frequency. I say 3 because when you put 2 together, they have 3 times the power of each alone. There's an exponent thing that happens with the energy. So you bring twins together, and there's the 2. 2 don't become 1, they become 3. There is each separately and individually, and then they together. And they exist as intensified energy forms. They're doing the mass twinning event through the planetary grids for a very specific reason, for several very specific reasons. One is to protect human beings from the frequencies that are coming in. If you are with your twin or a person who's very close in DNA template relationship, and you may already be with your twin, by the way, even if you happen to be married, it may be the person you're married to. If not, you will get assigned your twin on the astral level, which will just mean it will not have a romantic interest type thing. It would be just like having a buddy in energy form that will help you hold a 6-dimensional frequency that's running through the grids. This is going to be done all over because humans basically would have to activate the sixth DNA strand template to be able to hold 6-dimensional frequency in the body without the body becoming sick and deteriorating and dying more rapidly. We're just working on getting the 4th strand going on the mass level. We're just going into the race evolution cycle where the 3rd strand would naturally evolve and go into 4th strand activation. So the twinning is going to assist to make sure people don't get fried by frequency. This energy is coming into the planet. It starts the first week of January. And it's going to intensify very, very rapidly to the end of 2001. We have till 2001 to get those stargates secured. If they're not secured by then, and the grid speed isn't high enough to create a natural seal, frequency seal, that will block the interdimensional manipulation and will get rid of the manipulation coming through Stargate 4 and 5, they're not going to be able to prevent pole shift between 2003 and 2008. That would be evac plan B. That's what the Guardian Legions are contacting people about. They want to help here. They don't want to have to go to plan B. But they need our help. Our bodies are on planet. The human DNA template is directly connected to the planetary template. When activated, the human DNA template has the ability to run the frequencies of the Kundalini, the Kirashe, and the Kundalini energies of the Antankarana and the Maharata. You can bring the higher frequencies down in through the human DNA template if you open up the human DNA system to the planetary system like it's supposed to be. That's why they're teaching these things. The twinning will also help us to stop earth changes. With this kind of frequency coming through the grids, we're going to get hit with B6 frequency 5 years early. These grids are already starting to creak. You know, look at Popo. Yeah. When a stellar activation cycle happens, a Stargate opening cycle happens, it's like turning on the lights in a house that hasn't had the lights turned on in 40 years. You might have some problems in the circuitry. When you have grid blockages, it makes it much worse. With the twinning event, we will be able to stabilize the grids because we'll each have a buddy. We'll be okay, so we don't end up getting fried frequency-wise and getting sick. And fried means, because things are happening on your template, it means your immune system crashes. Your bones start to get more brittle, and it means the bone marrow starts to change, where things like cancers and heart disease and all those things, the body has a much harder time fighting off. Not to mention microorganisms and diseases built on viruses or bacteria. That's why the twinning is happening. But it also gives a lot of joy. We're getting a buddy, whether we want one or not. But, yeah.
Is this gender twin going to be as conscious and awake as we are?
We hope. We always hope. They will be a reflection. They will be a reflection of your own level. Okay? And you may find in your twin or the buddy that's assigned to you the things that you don't see in yourself yet that need to be, raised to a higher level. So you may get those reflected back to you.
There's a lot of joy.
And you'll do the same to them. But underneath it, there is a bond in the DNA that allows for, even though there may be conflict here, there's some kind of weird understanding between us. We can even fight sometimes, but there's still a love feeling there. There's a thing that happens with twins that's different than your average relationships on the planet. There's much more compatibility of frequency. What love is, in physics terms, in terms of interdimensional physics, is a state of vibrational harmonization. If you have two DNA templates that have very, very different coding and not too much the same, you're going to have all sorts of disharmonic frequencies there. You're going to have a real hard time in that kind of relationship. But if you have DNA codes that are very similar, even if there's some dissimilarity, you will still have all these frequencies that plug in. And when those frequencies in the DNA template plug in between people, be it a twin or even somebody you're talking to, the people you find you like most have DNA that's most similar to yours. Okay? Because it allows for open frequency to flow between you, which gives the emotional body a state or a feeling that we identify as the feeling of connection and love and comfort and all of that. Okay?